What is going on there, everyone? I hope y'all have been having a wonderful weekend. But I tell you what, the news just keeps pouring in, pouring in, and pouring in. Mainly about the drone strike on Soleimani, Iraqi general. Let's get into this story because I think there's the possibility that President Trump may have just ended the Iraq war on accident, unknowingly. But let's get into the story. Iraqi lawmakers urge end to U.S. troops' presence as Iran, mourns slain general. And I think we'll get into that. Hold on. The vote in Parliament after the U.S. killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani of Iran in Baghdad is not final until Iraq's prime minister signs the bill. Oh, I hope they sign this bill. My God, I hope they sign this bill. We could actually get out of Iraq without looking like we're tucking tail or, however the negative media would spin it, even though they're still going to spin it no matter what, horribly, because what we've seen is them come out, the left-wing media, and say, oh, this was the worst thing in the world, blah, 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 blah. You have these left-wing morons such as, what's her name, Rose McGowan, sitting there apologizing on behalf of America. Don't do that, Rose. I'm not really apologizing. Although I don't like drone strikes or war, I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not sorry. That guy was a terrible person. He was a terrorist. I mean, come on. And then, what's that? Michael Moore actually sent a private message to the leader of Iran. Get out of here. Michael Moore, Rose McGowan, all y'all should be rounded up and kicked out of our country. Truly, kicked out of our country. Y'all are trash. Ugh. Alright. Baghdad. Lawmakers in Iraq voted on Sunday to require the government to end the presence of American troops in the country after the United States ordered the killing of Iranian leader of the elite Quds force, Major General Qasem Soleimani, on Iraq soil. The decision to heed the demands of angry Shiite factions and politicians came as hundreds of thousands of mourners poured into the street of Iran to pay their respects to General Soleimani. Not all those people were out in the streets, in protest of the killing. There were a lot of people, which the left-wing media is refusing to even acknowledge the existence of. There was a whole lot of people in Iran celebrating the death of this man. The Iranian people, by and large, I don't know if the left-wing journalists or media have been paying attention to Iran for the past while. They've been protesting their regime. There's been, I don't know how many, but there's been countless numbers of protesters protesting the Iranian regime that have been killed by the Iranian government just for simply protesting. Yeah. Left-wing media doesn't talk about that. But, yeah. Where was I at? More important than the streets, blah, 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 blah. The most powerful figure in the country after the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The vote is not final until the Prime Minister, Adel Abdul Mahdi of Iraq, signs the bill. But since he drafted the language and submitted the bill to the parliament, there was little doubt he would sign. So, God, I hope he does sign it. Can you imagine? How much things would actually de-escalate the less troops we have over there? It really would. The problem is even if we leave Iraq, we still have a skeleton crew of forces in Syria, and then we still have troops in Afghanistan. We got a whole bunch of troops amassing in Saudi Arabia, so we're still mired in the Middle East, unfortunately. Although the vote was 170-0 in Parliament, many of its 328 members, primarily Kurds and Sunnis, did not attend the session and did not vote, showing the division in Parliament on the demands to oust American troops, while groups that grew out of Shiite militia organizations have pushed hard for the expulsion. Sunni Muslim factions and the Kurds wanted the United States to stay. The legislation treads a fine needle. while using strong language demanding that the government end any foreign presence on Iraqi soil and prevent the use of Iraqi airspace, soil, and water for any reason by foreign forces. It gives no timetable for doing so. It would end the mission approved in 2014 that gave the United States the explicit task of helping the Iraqi forces to fight the Islamic State. That agreement gave the Americans, the United States, substantial latitude to launch attacks and to use Iraqi airspace, but the measure would leave in place the Strategic Framework Agreement, which allows an American troop presence in Iraq in some form. On Sunday, the American-led coalition in Iraq and Syria announced that it would pause its year-long mission of fighting the Islamic State and training local forces in both countries. A pullout of an estimated 5,200 American troops could cripple the fight against the Islamic State or ISIS and could allow its resurgence. Well, I could say that's pretty much guaranteed. If we leave, we've seen that these countries and these governments in the Middle East, as long as we're there, they state an anti-terrorist message. But as soon as we let up on them, they just work with them. But that's the Middle East for you. We're not going to change that. We're just not going to change it. These are war-fighting people. They are constantly at a state of war since the dawn of time, it seems. It's just the United States isn't going to march in there and change that. We're just not. These people ain't going to listen to us. They don't care. They hate the West. They always have. On Sunday, Mr. Abdul Mahdi urged lawmakers to act after the president ordered a drone strike that killed General Soleimani in Baghdad airport on Friday. The body of General Soleimani was brought back, pieces, because he was obliterated. They had to use his gaudy rings to identify that it was even him. Among others killed in the attack was Abdul Mahdi al-Muhandis, the deputy head of the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, which includes at least half a dozen pro-Iranian militias. The general's killing unleashed calls for vengeance in both Iraq and Iran and reinforced a general solidarity among hardliners and moderates in Iran against the United States. After the vote in Iraq called on government to expel American troops, Iranian officials reacted with congratulatory messages. Hassanuddin Ashina, a top advisor to the President Hussein Rouhani, wrote on Twitter, "Expanding friendship with our neighbors and domestic unity are the best gifts for protecting our national security." In Iraq, the attack was seen as a violation of the nation's sovereignty. On Sunday, Iraqi's foreign minister said it had summoned the American ambassador in Baghdad. In Iran, it was viewed as tantamount to an act of war. Yeah, but by our definitions of what was going on, it's not considered an act of war at all. But that's American standards and laws and stuff that was set up by Bush and Obama. Hossein, I don't know your last name. I ain't going to try to say it. Too many H's for me. A military advisor to Mr. Khamenei told CNN that Iran's response would include an attack on U.S. military targets. As the Middle East embraced for Iranian retaliation, which analysts said was all but inevitable, and American officials said they expected within weeks, Tehran and Washington ratcheted up the rhetoric. Members of Iranian's parliament chanted, "Death to America." Hey, what's new? They've been saying that forever. En masse in the chamber on Sunday in protest over General Soleimani's killing, television footage showed. That's nothing new. They've been chanting "Death to America" since the 1960s, when the Islamic militant type groups took over, and the Persians, because Iran used to be a really, really westernized type place. They actually liked Western culture, and they were embracing it pretty hard until the radical, Muslim clerics and everything took charge. They ruined poor Iran. That's why we have a lot of Iranians from back then here today in America, because they fled. Yeah. The chance came as Mr. Trump fired off a series of Twitter reposts riposte. I like how they put that. To the growing anger, including that the United States had pinpointed 52 targets in Iran, including cultural sites, if there were any retaliation for the killing. He said the sites represented the 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago at the United States Embassy. I don't approve of that at all, though. I don't like that Trump said that they came out. You can't bomb cultural sites just for retaliation. If it doesn't hold a military significance, I don't think you should bomb that at all. No. No. I would argue that if who the president, no matter who the president is, whether Democrat or Republican, I don't care. Cultural sites, just for the sheer retaliatory measure, no. Sorry. That goes against some of my anti-war things. I wouldn't be able to go with that. That led Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif to respond on Twitter that targeting cultural sites is a war crime. I would probably have to agree with that, sorry. He said that the end of the U.S. malign presence in West Asia has begun. And I hope it has, because I would love to leave that. Iran summoned the Swiss envoy representing American interests in Tehran on Sunday to protest Mr. Trump's threat that Washington would target Iranian sites. I don't think Trump would actually do that. I think he's just, being a little bit bombastic. We've seen this before with him where he'll say some really outlandish thing and then not actually have any intentions on carrying out those attacks. It's just bombastic rhetoric, It's that fear thing, just trying to sow fear to the Iranian regime. And Mr. Trump's tweet became a rallying cry among Iranians, sharing it widely on social media and phone applications with the message, "Attend the funeral for our cultural heritage." Iran's Information and Telecommunications Minister Mohammad Javad, good Lord, I suck with people's names, Azari Jaromi, tweeted on Sunday that Mr. Trump was a terrorist in a suit. Well, that's going a little far. I mean, come on. I would get that if you said that about someone like Obama, who killed American, at least 2 American citizens, with the possibility of a third in Yemen, and carried out a couple thousand drone strikes on people. Like I said, including American citizens. I think you could say that more about him than Trump. Sorry. Like ISIS, like Hitler, like Genghis, they all hate cultures. Trump is a terrorist in a suit. He will learn history very soon that nobody can defeat the great Iranian nation and culture. Just more bombastic rhetoric from their leaders. This is a tit for tat. This is all this is. There ain't going to be no major Iranian attack on U.S. interest or infrastructure or anything like that over there. I really highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. I mean, really, the killing of Soleimani kind of set Iran back. He was one of their biggest military guys, He was one of their strategic masterminds. He's gone now. And, the way they got him with that drone, unbeknownst to anybody until it actually happened, that in and of itself is a very powerful deterrent for Iran to do anything else. Because what you gotta understand is these people, with Trump taking out a general and a member of their government, that kind of let them all know you're all fair game. If you keep this anti-American sentiments up, if you keep working with rebels and militia groups to attack us and to attack our embassy, because what we saw last week wasn't an attack on our embassy by mainly Iranian militia groups. Look at the flags that were up there. There was a lot of Hamas flags flying and stuff like that. That was not just a protest. That was an attack on our embassy. And I do believe this was in retaliation to the attack on our embassy. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, invited Mr. Zarif to Brussels for talks. Mr. Borrell said in a statement that he had spoken to Iran's foreign minister, urging Iran to exercise restraint and carefully consider any reaction to avoid further escalation, which harms the entire region and its people. Germany's foreign minister, Heiko Maas, said he would seek direct talks with Iran after the American killer of General Soleimani. Europe wants to continue the fight against the Islamic State, Mr. Maas said, and Germany is anxious about the safety of its troops training Iraqi fighters against the Islamic State militants. We Western nations really should not be trying to train anybody over in the Middle East. How many times have we seen, let's just say every time that we've done this, it's worked out against us. Even when we just simply give them arms, we end up getting attacked with those arms. Every time we train them, our training that we give them is reversed onto us. We got to stop helping these people. They do not have our best interest in mind. I feel really sad and upset for the citizens there who like the West and who believe in freedoms and democracies and all this stuff that don't have a voice. Yes, I feel for them. But it's not our place as Americans to try to change them. It's just not our place. That's their country. The people within those countries have to do that. It's not going to work out if it's us. You know what I mean? It's just not going to work out. The European outreach came as the United States and its NATO allies suspended training Iraqi forces for security reasons after the killing of General Soleimani, which, thank God, we shouldn't have been training them anyways, like I just said. Germany's defense minister, Annegret, good lord, Annegret Karrenbauer, said in a statement, Iraq cannot be allowed to sink into chaos and certainly not under the control of extremists. Therefore, it is important not to let up now in the fight against Islamic State. Well, Germany, how about this? How about, since they want America to leave, how about we leave and y'all go in there and keep doing that. Keep training them and doing whatever. Because we've wasted $1.2 trillion over there so far. And that's being a little bit liberal with the number. Yeah, $1.2 trillion, which we could have spent here in America on infrastructure and all that other good stuff. But no, we've been wasting it and hemorrhaging money over there in the Middle East. I'm sick of it. I think a lot of people are sick of it. In general, the Europeans did not specifically criticize Mr. Trump for his decisions and generally share the American view that Iran has been a destabilizing force in the Middle East and a supporter of terrorism. At the same time, no European government praised the killing of General Soleimani, emphasizing instead the increased risk to their citizens, troops, and interest. Prime Minister Boris Johnson of Britain was reported to be angry with Mr. Trump for not informing him or other allies with troops in Iraq about the decision to kill General Soleimani. While carried out by the Americans, the killing is thought to have put all European citizens and troops in Iraq and the wider region at heightened risk. Mr. Johnson, who was said to be returning early from vacation in the Caribbean, is expected to discuss the issues with Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany, President Emmanuel Macron of France, and Trump in the next few days, a Downing Street spokeswoman said. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo complained that any response by the European allies had not been helpful. He told Fox News in an interview, "Frankly, the Europeans haven't been as helpful as I wish that they could be. The Brits, the French, and the Germans all need to understand that what we did, what the Americans did, saved lives in Europe as well." Dominic Raab, Britain's foreign minister, who has been scheduled to travel to Washington this week to meet Mr. Pompeo, said any country had a right to defend itself. This is a long article. Asked in an interview with the BBC whether the killing was legal, Mr. Raab said there is a right of self-defense. He said he did not agree that the killing was an act of war. It's not an act of war, and President Obama established that these direct attacks on individual targets are not an act of war or even an act of considered of aggression. And that was his seeing of it. I don't know. I kind of disagree with some of it, but yeah. He said he did not agree with it. Yeah. But Mr. Raab also said that he had spoken to Iraqi's prime minister and the president to urge a de-escalation of tensions in the region, and that he planned to speak to Iran's foreign minister. In particular, the Europeans are trying to persuade Iran to keep the 2015 nuclear deal. No, the nuclear deal was not. If it wasn't for us pulling out of the nuclear deal, we would have never been able to strike this guy in the first place. The Iranian nuclear deal had it set up to where we couldn't mess with anybody in Iran. But guess what? We pulled out of that, thank goodness. We shouldn't have ever had an Iranian nuclear deal, because you think Iran is really going to go with any deal made with America? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah. And it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. I think we've heard enough. The thing is that this may get us out of the war, the Iraqi theater. And all in all, I think that would be a good thing, because of course you're going to have your like warmongers and your neocons and your neolibs sit there and say, oh no, we got to be there. Our troops have to be there. All it's going to do is make things worse if we leave. Things aren't getting better. We've been there for 20 years. Things haven't gotten better. They haven't. They're just as crazy as they were. The simple fact of the matter is there's so many factions operating in these Muslim countries and in these, the whole Islamic countries in the Middle East. There's so many different factions with the Sunnis, the Shiites, the Kurds, this, that, and the other. And none of them seem to ever get along with each other. Us being there is not going to stop anything. It's just not. They don't care that we're there. They want us gone. We should leave. And if the Prime Minister of Iraq signs that bill, I do believe that makes us have to leave. So we can get out without us being the ones saying we're leaving, which is a good thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on. I don't think anybody right now quite knows what's going to happen. I do know one thing. We're not going to go to war. This isn't going to start World War III. It doesn't even. It doesn't compare. First off, you got to have multiple nations wanting to go to war for it to be a world war, and this pretty much just is dealing with America and Iran. There's a bunch of butthurt people around about it, but no one's talking about war. Trump already said this wasn't to start a war. This was to keep one from happening. And an Iranian official was just on television this morning, and he said also that they do want to do a retaliatory strike, but they don't want to go to war. There you go. There you go. No war. No world war. Calm down. Everyone just calm down. Calm down. Let's just see where this all leads, because there's a lot of options on the table at the moment, and no one quite knows where we're going to go. But in leaving this video, we're not going to war. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just don't worry, you little heads, about it, because, no one knows what's going to happen. So, I'd love to hear your comments, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. I will catch you all on the flip side. There we go. My bad. It's been one of those weekends. Y'all take care.